How are you guys? Welcome back to Wargaming China. And if you know what the channel's about, it's my free channel where I platform my understandings of the war of resistance against Japanese aggression in China from 1931 to 1945. Now I mainly do this for wargamers and toy soldier enthusiasts, but anybody who likes a bit of obscure history might like this channel too. So as you know, if you watch this channel, I don't know how many videos I'm going to make every month. I have no schedules. I just do these videos when I have time. So hit subscribe if you don't want to miss anything. Now today, as you recognize from my last video, we're back at Matan on the Yangtze River. Now, in the 18 months, it's been over a year since the Japanese have occupied this place, and I've had plenty of time to this place fell in late June 1938, so it's 15 months later, October 1940. Now, what has happened is that in the time that since this base has fallen, the Japanese have turned it into a huge supply depot, and ships coming down from the Yangtze often will dock here, unload their supplies, which will be feeding the armies on the southern bank of the Yangtze. Now, by the end of 1939, it was pretty obvious to the Japanese, from the highest general to the lowest private, that they weren't going to be winning. That Japan was not winning the war in China, and the likelihood of winning it had very little likelihood of winning it without doing something radically different. And as we enter 1940, we see the Chinese forces, which although materially and manpower-wise are weak, launching a series of offensives on all fronts and in multiple war zones. And 1940 is the time of the 100 regiments campaign by the Red Army in support of Chiang's forces, and indeed the year 1940 seems to be a time in China where, although China is still trying to be on the offensive, she cannot arm and equip her armies quick enough and efficiently enough for those offensives to do anything other than bleed her already short supply of arms and equipment. So although the Japanese are in a state where they think, well, if it doesn't look like we're going to be winning in China, for the Chinese it's still a thought of we have to keep the Japanese off balance, because if they do get their balance back, we are weaker than the Japanese realize. Well, that's my interpretation as a layman of the strategic situation. So by 1940, supplies passing along the Yangtze River were often subject to interdiction from the shore by guerrilla activity. And indeed, by late September 1940, the 9th War Zone had issued orders that this fortress of Matan, that was now a huge supply hub for the Japanese forces, needed to be eliminated and hit as a blow to stop the Japanese building up more forces upriver. And the commander that got handed the order to commence an operation was General Chen Wanren. And this General Chen Wanren was, I think we got his name right. Chen Wanren seems to be a very seasoned commander if you look at his career. Although there is some dispute whether he was in command of the 21st Army at this time or the 23rd Army. It doesn't matter, it was forces from the 21st Army that made this raid. Now, the reason that many will find this raid interesting is because many people ask me, did China have commandos? Now, commandos, you know, you can think of them in many ways. The Boer War and the Boer commandos, or you can think of it as the Churchill's commandos, you know, or special forces. But General Chen Wanren doesn't have a pool of what we would call crack special forces at his disposal. And he has a short time to conduct this operation because everybody's intelligence network, the Japanese and the Chinese intelligence networks, are very good. So any kind of operation like this that took too long to prepare would be doomed to failure and compromise because of spies. So within the general's forces were many of the actual Marines who had defended Matan in the first battle. And indeed, many of his forces were also sailors that had been manning the guns during the battle. So just from his own men alone, he had sufficient knowledge of the fortress. But also, as I said, the spy network was very good, and he would have known the ins and outs of this because such a large Japanese supply depot would have been using Chinese labour, and there's no doubt at all that there would have been Chinese spies and obviously sympathisers among that labour who would have been more than willing to answer any questions that were asked by the Chinese. So it appears that on this raid also, it's got something that I like to think of as a commando asset. It has an infiltration and an extraction. And this is a raid behind enemy lines to all intents and purposes. So what forces did General Wanren assemble for this? Well, he would have assembled, and this is only conjecture, because the forces are named but not numbered. You know, there's no orders of battle that I could find. But it would have consisted of Marines and sailors from the first Battle of Matan, and then Sichuan troops, because 21st Army was a Sichuan army in its heart, even though the provincial armies had been gone in any importance politically by this time. All the troops of the 21st Army, most of the troops of the 21st Army were from Sichuan. Again, you're looking at this vital strategic task to block the river, to prevent the Japanese sending more reinforcements upriver for their coming offensive. And it's been handed to the troops of Sichuan. So, as we know with all fortifications, all the ancient fortifications. And if you look at the Great Wall as one example of Chinese fortifications, the greatest example of Chinese fortifications, you will see that there are lots of passageways that don't appear to be passageways. Or, how can I put it? As you can see here, brickwork defences built of brick can be very deceptive. Now what I mean by that is we're going to look at the composition of the cement. Now at some points along the Great Wall, and this is an archaeological fact, what the Chinese would do when they built it is build one section of the wall like an arch, but hidden into the brickwork, like not an arch, step down brickwork at one point. And that step down brickwork, if you're a bricklayer or a builder, you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't know how to put it in layman's terms, but a section of the wall, the mix of the brick, of the mortar, the cement, if you like, would be different. With higher sand, no cement, and just lime, and it would be one skin. And on the inside of the other passage that would create a cavity that would create on the inside of the fortification, there will be another skin like that, another skin of bricks. So to the eye, would not be perceptible at all as a passageway, because it would have been built when the fortification was built. It's an original part. And of course all fortifications have secret entries and exits. So look, if we look at the official records of China's war, it says that this raid was conducted on the 12th. Matan Fortress was held for 3 days, and Chinese artillery was brought forward to engage Japanese naval forces on the river so that mines could be laid by the Marines. These forces were assisted by villagers and civilians willingly. And after the official history, it's very brief. There's not many articles on it that seem to correlate very much. But as a wargamer, I didn't dismiss these articles. So it's a fact that the fort was raided, the fortress was raided. It's a fact that the mines were laid and the fortress was held for 3 days, and the Japanese failed to retake the fortress. And the Chinese forces evacuated successfully. So a very successful raid, conducted by the best troops General Chen Wanren had, and led by Tai Zai Zhang. This was a very audacious plan, and indeed it so caught the Japanese by surprise that on the night of the 11th, having assembled already in Madang town, this fortress was infiltrated. Now none of the records state how this fortress was infiltrated, but there are many different scenarios written down as to how it happened. But the Chinese indeed did infiltrate this fortress. Then, successfully, they put everybody to the sword or the bayonet and silenced this garrison within the night with the blade, without firing a shot. The garrison, the Japanese garrison, would have been close to a battalion, but if that was a security battalion, it could be as weak as like three infantry companies and a machine gun company. We don't know what the Japanese forces were, but whatever they were wiped out to a man silently. Then boats the civilian boats, fishing boats, brought down more forces and troops and marines to lay mines in this channel. By dawn, the mine laying had already commenced, and when dawn broke, the Japanese Navy found itself that there was artillery on this side of the bank, on the northern side of the bank. But not only that, the guns of the fortress themselves had begun to fire. Now, the official account, and as I said, it's very brief, doesn't state that the guns of the fortress fired. It states the guns were brought forward. But all the other accounts state that indeed the guns on the fortress were responsible for a great toll of the Japanese inventory that they had, that was this supply vessel, you know. So, as I said, not much of it was written in the English language about this raid. I believe that it does qualify as a commando raid because this is a strategic goal. It's been done by the best forces that the army had at that time, the 21st Army had at that time. The Marines were good troops anyway, and because of the extraction, getting away from the enemy as well as the infiltration, I believe this qualifies as a commando raid. So the long and the short of it is that for 3 days the Chinese held the fortress. They laid many mines in the channel, blocking off all access upriver, and they knocked out and destroyed many small vessels of the Japanese that were cargo vessels, as well as buildings of the garrison at Tsingtao. The Japanese did launch a counterattack, but it was driven off by a preemptive attack by the Chinese. It appears that the Chinese would have ambushed the approaching Japanese in the forest here, on this road here, and then retreated to their positions for the Japanese then to recover, try to attack the positions and fail, and then the Chinese having time to withdraw. And it appears that they withdrew by boat, by civilian vessel. So it appears that they withdrew, although the fortress was held for 3 days, it was probably getting forces evacuated from the second day onward. Because, you know, it was a tiny fleet of fishing boats. And it appears that the weather held good for the Chinese for these 3 days too. It doesn't appear that any reference to the Japanese Air Force appeared, or any Japanese air assets appearing. So what I've done as a wargamer, or what I'm going to do as a wargamer, is I've played the game as a dawn of the 12th. It's dawn as a Japanese supply column coming down the supply convoy coming down the river. There's a Japanese ship in port, undocking, some landing craft undocking, 2 garrison buildings, you know, a depot guarded, and the forces I've used are, I'm going to have on the table are, I thought I would say the Chinese forces for this battle at tops should be estimated about 600 fighting men, and that's being generous. So as I said, if they're evacuating them by fishing boats, it's quite a task. What else is there to say about this battle? Well, so I'm going to play it as of dawn onward. I've given the Chinese a reinforced battalion, a strengthened battalion, plus the gunners of the Navy and some naval infantry as Marines. I'll play this as an 8-turn game, and I'll have the Japanese reinforcements coming on at, I'll roll a d10 to find out when the Japanese reinforcements come on. As far as I was going to tell you something, I can't remember. Anyway, that'll be for next time. So there you go, Matan, a commando raid by the Chinese, a very successful commando raid. In fact, this raid was so successful, the Chinese claim, and more than one Chinese writer claims this, that the fort was held for 3 days against the Japanese. Mines were laid. Many building facilities of the Japanese and small cargo ships, boats, were destroyed. And then the Chinese left. And their casualties? 13 casualties, none killed. So this indeed was an audacious raid. Spectacular in its results, closing the Yangtze down. And it's going to be an interesting game to play, and I'll give you the epilogue when I finish playing it. Alright, hit like if you enjoyed that. If not, well, what can I do? See ya.